Talk Radio.
Apple was the first company to remove Alex Jones's hateful, anti-government conspiratorial rants from their platform. And other tech companies, as we know, followed their lead.
We have the ADL that is openly the arbiter with big tech and the censors on who can be online, who can basically in the future with a social credit score even have a job. You're going to be put into ghettos and then into camps under their admitted plans.
Whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed, we're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system.
The head of the ADL put out a letter attacking Elon Musk and saying, you will not reinstate President Trump. He is a danger and a terrorist. And they went on to say Alex Jones is the other big enemy, and he must not be allowed back on Twitter. I am worried about the social credit score, the debanking that's coming for everybody in the next phase of this real tyranny. You talk about clear and present danger.
We're talking about the ability to track and trace and surveil upon subjects from the cradle to the grave, effectively, from the beginning of your life or your children's lives or your grandchildren's lives. They'll have biometric identity markers placed on you and connected with this digital ID. And then all records about all activity will be associated with it. This is not simply some identification. This is a database that is kept in a centralized place by the state and then is a collection of all activities from the beginning of your life onward.
But why is it so important that we're on the air? Why is it so important your backing of the few oases of truth and freedom? Because as things get worse and worse, as the New World Order comes out in the open, people are hungering for the truth more than ever, and the globalists know if we stay on air and others stay on air, we will dominate the culture war, we will win, they will go to prison. They will be defeated.
You will pay. You will not succeed, Bill. Crimes against humanity. Nuremberg 2 is happening. OpenSource.com, we have all the research.
That's why it is critical, beyond critical, essential that you continue in the face of censorship and everything that's going on by word of mouth, by text message, by email, by the side of your barn, the back of your car, calling it talk radio, calling it a C-SPAN.
Frankly, what I'm focused on today is building the united front against what, and this is not hyperbole, what to me is U.S. fascism.
That's your chat with a few callers. John's up first out of Austin, Texas. Independent, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm listening to Mr. Mitchell here, and just as an American, and I'm wondering how it is that Trump is a cult and the Democratic Party isn't a cult when they've already instituted socialism, they've flirted with communism, and you talk about fascism. We can talk a lot about the Democratic Party and their neo-fascist views. So why is it that you want to bring the country together, yet you want to take this extreme side?
The Republican Party has been captured by a political cult. I don't use those words lightly.
Aligning to cult things. You can go back to Obama administration, but I would also go in more recent history. You've got the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa siding with Democrats. The cities were burned down. People were murdered. It seems very cult-like. We've got the Biden administration with pharmaceutical companies spending billions of dollars, right, on vaccines that went from 100% efficacy to 40% efficacy, and they're making billions of dollars. We've had free speech taken away.
Plymouth, Michigan, this is Janice, line for Republicans. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Mitchell, there are none so blind as those who cannot see. Let me give you a little piece of advice. You will never succeed in your goal by insulting half the country and calling them fascists, racists, ultra-MAGA. So that's political violence that you're talking about that Republicans and ultra-MAGAs are doing. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It is a lie. There was political violence in our country in the summer of 2020.
Wherever you can be heard, know, whether it's by 5 people or 1,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000, you're going to win the fight.
Powerful stuff. Find and share that at Infowars.com. We will win the fight. We are winning.
Stay with us. We'll do your daily dispatch on the other side. It's AmericanJournal.Infowars.com.
It's Wednesday, December 4th, in the year of our Lord 2024. And you're listening to the American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch it live right now at band.video.
I think it's time to blow this thing. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the American Journal. I'm your host, Harrison Smith, coming to you live this Tuesday morning from the InfoWars headquarters here in Austin, Texas. I realized, looking at the studio from that wide shot, we need a Christmas tree in here. It's Christmas time, folks. We need to reflect that, although I do like the fall background. It matches my tie. We have a lot to talk about today. We'll be talking a lot about American politics. Really will be our main concern, although there is, of course, World War III, and we'll touch again on what exactly happened yesterday in South Korea. I think it's over now. I'm pretty sure. Kind of weird to declare martial law and then be like, yeah, never mind. A couple hours later, we'll look into that a little bit. But we have a lot of domestic news to get into. That should probably take up a lot of the time. We'll be joined by Alex Newman in the third hour, taking your calls in the second hour. And let's just get into it. Here it is, your Daily Dispatch. All right, here it is, folks, your Daily Dispatch for Wednesday, the 4th of December, 2024. Russia-U.S. clash at UN over escalation in Syria fighting. Russia's deputy permanent representative to the UN, Anatoly Anatov, spoke during the meeting of the Russian Security Council on Syria at the UN headquarters in New York City on the 3rd of December, yesterday. And they clashed, Russia and the United States at the United Nations, accusing each other of supporting terrorism during a Security Council meeting convened over a sudden escalation of fighting in Syria. Syrian rebels captured Aleppo last week in an attack initiated by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, formerly known as Nusra Front. It was al-Qaeda's official wing in Syria until breaking ties in 2016. It is sanctioned by the UN Security Council. Deputy U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, called for a de-escalation of the fighting in Syria and the protection of civilians. He also expressed concern that the rebel offensive was led by HTS, saying the fact that the HTS is listed as a terrorist organization by the U.S. and UN does not justify the further atrocities by the Assad regime and its Russian backers, said Wood. Sure, we're arming and allied with domestic, or not even domestic, sorry, slip of the tongue. I'm talking about American politics too much. Just regular terrorism, just your normal international Muslim terrorism. Sure, we may be arming and allied with them, but you can't defend yourself against it. That's the real bad thing. That's the real bad thing that's happening. Totally insane. In remarks directed at Wood, Russia's UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said, "You were unable to summon the courage to condemn a clear terrorist attack undertaken against peaceful civilians in peaceful Syrian cities. There are no illusions that Washington will ever be willing to sincerely combat international terrorism," he said. "To be frank, we are pleased that we are on opposite sides of the barricades from you right now." Woof. Yeah, things are heating up in the UN, and frankly, Russia's right in this regard. That shouldn't surprise anybody. You don't need to be a Russian agent to recognize that America is very obviously allied with literal terrorists that are like beheading people right now because it's politically expedient for us and we're trying to start World War III. So we should do something about that. Meanwhile, jurors set to deliberate in subway chokehold trial. This is the trial of Daniel Penny. Story from BBC. Was Daniel Penny reckless? Jurors deliberate on subway chokehold death. Mr. Penny's lawyers say he acted out of fear to protect fellow New Yorkers. A jury of 12 New Yorkers, kind of 12 New Yorkers. Some of them are immigrants, foreigners. A jury of your peers, including some dude from the Philippines. It's kind of strange, this whole thing. We're actually going to return to this and talk quite a bit about people bringing the charges, the medical examiner. We'll talk a little bit about who the jurors are and who Jordan Neely was, the man who died after being choke held by Daniel Penny and turned over to the police, still living. This apparently was murder, but only after the medical examiner saw the video and decided that was evidence that Jordan Neely died from a stranglehold, despite making that determination before ever receiving the toxicology reports that revealed He was full of drugs. Also, Jordan Neely was at the time, had a warrant out for his arrest for attacking somebody on a subway train. So that's kind of interesting. We'll return to that and pray for Daniel Penny. If there's any justice left in the world, he will be a free man later today. I'm not holding my breath, though. Meanwhile, Hegseth faces an absolutely critical day as Pentagon hopes hang by a thread. Donald Trump is in danger of losing another one of his provocative cabinet picks and a further blow to his bid to shake up Washington in his second term. The president-elect is facing a decision about how much his heart is set on former Fox News anchor Pete Hegseth to run the Pentagon. Hegseth's candidacy ran into stiff headwinds on Tuesday amid increasing disquiet among some GOP senators about allegations concerning his treatment of women, drinking, and the capacity to run the U.S. military behemoth. These, of course, as far as I can tell, are baseless smears that crop up conveniently anytime somebody who's unfriendly to the power structure is in position to infiltrate the power structure. Really couldn't be more obvious, but it keeps working, so they keep doing it. Matt Gaetz is about to take power. Well, accuse him of sex crimes. Doesn't matter if they're true. Doesn't matter if they've actually been thoroughly investigated and proven false. The accusation is enough to sink them, and that's just the one-size-fits-all tool that the globalists use to retain control and make sure that people friendly to them get in all the right positions. We'll return to that. Trump's talking about replacing with Ron DeSantis. I again think the claims about Hegseth are, first of all, totally inconsequential, don't actually matter. The only thing in that list would be his capacity to run the Pentagon itself. But I think that's fine anyway. These are just obviously baseless smears. It's a shame that it still works. It's like the last vestige of the mainstream media able to actually shape this narrative around it. And we need to move on from that. Meanwhile, Biden is attempting to make permanent the deep state before he leaves office by burdening the government with untenable contracts so that real Donald Trump and DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, cannot succeed. This needs to stop now. That's the post from Bill Ackman, but it's about this story. Biden administration locks in WFH policies for some federal staffers ahead of Trump's transition. Federal employee land work from home deal. Work from home, WFH. We'll get back into that, too. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's called Trump proofing, and we've been describing how at the UN and in Congress and at the State Department, they have been, quote unquote, Trump proofing all of their devious plans, trying to set contracts 5 years in advance or make an agreement for 10 years so that even if Trump gets in and tries to stop us from starting World War III, we'll be obliged by our, contract to continue to kill everybody. It's very annoying. We'll get back into that. Finally, we have this. Biden pledges another $3 billion plus over $1 billion of humanitarian support to Africa in rambling and slurred speech as Americans continue to struggle from hurricane flooding. Joe Biden spoke at the National Museum of Slavery in Angola, Africa on Tuesday, where he showcased a commitment of $3 billion to redevelop the Libido Corridor Railway and pledged more than $1 billion in additional humanitarian aid. According to the Associated Press, White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said the project was going to take years, and they hope President Trump and his administration see the value too. Yeah, there is no value. This is about countering China in Africa because China is basically giving out billions of dollars to China. China's giving out billions of dollars to African countries in an attempt to, sway them away from the West and get them to join BRICS or just to, they're just going with a diplomacy of generosity rather than a diplomacy of debt and threat. And it's working. So now I guess we're trying to counter that by giving away billions of dollars, which I think is stupid, especially when you consider the fact that winter is coming and there are still hundreds of thousands of people without homes or even running water in states here in the United States. So we'll get back into that too. That's your daily dispatch. We'll show you the video of Joe Biden slurring his way through this announcement. I wasn't really joking when I said that everybody displaced by the flood should just go to Washington, D.C. It's beyond outrageous the way that our government treats our own citizens as just livestock, as just tax farms. It really is despicable. It's like that I saw a meme yesterday, and it's the classic meme of, rockets being fired from wherever and intercepted in Israel. And it's like, these rockets are our tax dollars, and these rockets being fired at them are also our tax dollars. And then underneath that was a picture of Appalachia being destroyed. It's like somehow none of our tax dollars, somehow all of our tax money is exclusively given away to other people, while the people in our country struggle to get a roof over their heads. Instead, what our government is doing is coming in and removing tiny houses that the Amish went to build because they're not up to code. So they're literally kicking people out of perfectly functional dwellings and forcing them to live in tents or cars or on the floor of a gym somewhere, rather than just allow them to live in sheds that are built for that reason. It's really deliberate. It clearly is very deliberate and unsustainable and infuriating. And I don't know why we stand for it. I was thinking, sorry, that just pissed me off. I was gonna start off because here at the tail end of Biden's administration, I feel like we don't have too many more times that we'll be able to simply enjoy the absurdity of Joe Biden himself being out in public. This has been a tradition here for the last 4 years on American Journal. We like to start the show with a little bit of humor, keep it light in the morning, and usually that humor is provided by Joe Biden attempting to string a sentence together or walk around his own front yard or interact with children. Just, normal human things seem impossible and just always result in some sort of hilarious comedy with him. So we're gonna try to do that again today. I'm just gonna try to suppress the fact that in this video, Joe Biden is in an African country pledging billions of our tax dollars to rebuild a railway because they're so stupid. They're letting China take over the world as we sell out our own people. It's not actually funny now that I think about it. But let's watch anyway. It's clip number 12. Here's President Biden being tugged and guided by the president of Angola during his overseas trip. Let's watch. He's wandering. Oh, this way, sir. This way. Now this right stand here. Right there. Stop, sir. Right there. Literally treating him like a little kid. Yeah, I took family portraits recently, and that was me with my 3-year-old son. Just like, stand here, just right here. Stop running, stop walking away. Nope, turn there. Come on, Joe. You got this. You're just the most powerful person in the world right now. You think you'd be able to walk a straight line without help? My God. It's very sad. This is all very upsetting. Good Lord. And here's the story from Infowars.com. Bumbling Biden, guided by Angolian president as he wanders aimlessly in Africa. Footage from Joe Biden's trip in Africa shows the president of Angola forced to guide the senile U.S. puppet president as he wandered aimlessly at an event. During a ceremony Tuesday outside Presidential Palace in Luanda, 82-year-old Biden required assistance from Angolian President João Lourenço, who yanked his arm and directed him where to go. Elsewhere during the trip, the disgraced lame duck president appeared to refer to Angola as a city before correcting himself, saying, quote, Angola, a vibrant city. And look, not the city. The city, I know that's not Angola, but in Angola, in a vibrant city. Okay. All right. It's one thing when we show you videos of man on the street interviews where people are out there, on the streets of New York and don't know what state New York is in, or don't know that Utah is a state, don't know the capital of the United States. Like, those are stupid children on the streets of New York that we like to laugh at. This is the president of the United States here. Angola, a vibrant city, and look, not the city. The city I know is not Angola, but in Angola, in a vibrant city. Like poetry. It's really beautiful. It's really amazing. My God. Biden also had an awkward exchange with Angolan representatives at one point, telling them, "We Bidens are like poor relatives. We show up when we're invited. We stay longer than we should, eat all your food, and don't know when to go home." Okay. Okay, good point, Joe. we're like bad relatives. We show up, we give you $1 billion of other people's money, we make a fool of ourselves, poop our pants, and get on the plane, fly back home. 47 days, folks. 47 days. I got a good going. I got to start World War III. Got to pardon my criminal son. We got to let my son do more crack. President of the United States. It's almost over. We only have 47 days to wallow in this, so wallow we shall. Well, he was criticized for leaving to Africa immediately after his unprecedented sweeping pardon of his son Hunter. Pardon my son Hunter, go to Africa. That's to lay on the beach to pardon son. Start World War III, go to Africa. I'm the president of the United States. The trip culminated, what a shame. I perfect my Joe Biden impression just on the cusp of him leaving. This is even more upsetting than anything else. The trip culminated in Crooked Joe pledging $1 billion to Africa, ostensibly to fight climate change. Okay, I didn't realize it was to fight climate change. I thought it had to do with slavery or something. I didn't realize it was something even more stupid. With some speculating the trip was possibly some sort of money laundering scheme disguised as foreign aid. Well, that is what foreign aid is. I mean, I don't know what else you'd call it when people pay taxes to their government and the government just skedaddles with it, some third world nation, and hands it over to a dictator. I mean, that is money laundering by definition, but I'm sure they're scraping some off the top too. Don't get me wrong. And then we have the video of Biden announcing this $1 billion for new humanitarian support for Africa. What would that be? 200 of the high-tech high schools? What's $1 billion divided by 50 million? Is that 200 or 20? It's 200, right? I think that's right. Yeah, so four schools per state we could have afforded. Or we could have, rebuilt hurricane-ravaged Appalachia. I have family from Asheville, North Carolina, who are here in town for Thanksgiving. And they were saying that it wasn't until that week, Thanksgiving week, that Asheville had even gotten running water. The hurricane was in late September. This is 2 months of no running water in America. FEMA is bragging that they spent $100 million. Which, of course, you want to talk about money laundering. I wonder where all that money went, because it certainly didn't go into fixing the infrastructure in the places that were damaged. So still, in Asheville, North Carolina, and other places around it, you have giant, Walmart parking lots full of showers for people to use as they're having to truck in truck after truck, tanker truck after tanker truck of clean water because the infrastructure was so badly destroyed. The American people are being left literally in ruins while Joe Biden pardons his criminal crackhead whoremonger son, flies off to Africa, and gives away $1 billion of our dollars while seemingly incapable of even figuring out how to follow a line on the ground, how to walk in a direction. Totally insane. Here's the video, clip number 5. Biden pledging over $1 billion of new humanitarian support for Africans. Let's watch.
That's the right thing for the wealthiest nation in the world to do. And today, I'm announcing over $1 billion of new humanitarian support for Africans displaced from homes by historic droughts and food insecurity. We know African leaders and citizens are seeking more than just aid. You seek investment. So the United States is expanding our relationship all across Africa, from assistance to aid, to investment to trade, moving from patrons to partners to help bridge the infrastructure gap. I was told, by the way, when I got elected, I could never get an infrastructure bill passed.
Remember the infrastructure bill? Yeah, well, you made fools of us, Biden. We thought you'd never get an infrastructure bill passed, but sure enough, 4 years later, new highways, new hospitals, airports, it's all here, right? No, because you named a climate change bill the infrastructure bill and spent $1 billion on, or even more than that. I always forget the numbers because they're just that insane. But they spent $7 billion and created like 2 electric vehicle charging stations. That was Mayor Pete's program. It only makes sense for the richest country in the world, giving out all the money. There's something so heinous about these politicians going overseas and acting like they're being charitable with your money, acting like it's an accomplishment to write a check out of a bank account you don't control. It's just open theft. It's outrageous. But FEMA is celebrating the fact that they've supported North Carolina with over $100 million, $18.6 million to help homeowners and renters pay for emergency home repairs, home replacement, and other housing needs. $83.6 million to help with other serious disaster-related needs like moving expenses, childcare, and disaster-related dental, medical, or funeral expenses. You really got to wonder how much of that money ever actually helps people. Because you know the way this works, right? FEMA, and we've got lots of stories that will contribute to this truth that I'm explaining right now, that the people in government, like in FEMA, it never even enters into their mind to just do their job the way they're supposed to. We talk about it all the time. They see their position as a privilege to, as an excuse, as pure power. Like there's I have power now. So when a disaster happens, it's not like deploy everything, get everything on the ground. We got to do this efficiently and get the best people and let's pay the local people. It's all just, we're going to need water trucks. And they call up their friend. Hey, you should start a company right now. File an LLC. Say that you provide water tanker trucks for emergency services. I got a $50 million contract that I need to sign, and I want you to have it. And that's literally how it happens. And then some guy goes and makes an LLC, has no infrastructure, no experience, but he gets a $50 million contract. He keeps $20 million of it. He spends $50 million or $30 million on just hiring the people that actually do that, the trucks and whatever. And he, carves off $1 million or $2 million for the person in FEMA who gave him the contract in the first place. It's just all grift, all graft, all theft, hardly ever helps people at all. And you know that because as of now, they're having to extend waivers for FEMA. FEMA extends WNC waivers for disaster victims. We'll cover more on the other side. Quick commercial break. Stay with us.
Now, the one thing I want you to do, if I could ask you to do anything for America and Alex and this network and this crew, the one thing I would ask you to do, go to thealexjonesstore.com right now and sign up for Alex Jones VIP Club. It's $30 a month, but you get $40 in store credit. So if you're going to buy a $35 shirt, you might as well sign up for the VIP Club so that you can get that extra $10 and just get the shirt that you want. That is going to ensure that we can fund this operation, fund the next operation, and ensure that Alex always has a voice. They can try to steal his identity. They can try to steal his business. They can try to steal America. They can try to sacrifice humanity in nuclear genocide. But if you go to thealexjonesstore.com and sign up for Alex Jones VIP Club, they'll never take away our voice. They'll never take away our freedom. They'll never take away free speech, and we can save America together. Please go now and be the reason Alex Jones will always be on the air.
Infowars.com is tomorrow's news today.
Putting the power of conversation into the caller's hands. You're tuned in to the American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith.
Welcome back, folks. It's been quite the couple of months for old Joe. Honestly, he's like speed running the destruction of the United States and really the world. Starts World War III, pardons his son Hunter, jets to Africa where he's being led around like a blind person by the president of Angola, slurring his way through a speech where he gives away billions of dollars to fight climate change. They figured it out, folks. They saw that Angola had experienced some pretty devastating droughts and realized they didn't have enough money. That's what the problem was. It's completely insane. While meanwhile, people in Appalachia and the southeastern United States still don't have homes or running water or schools to send their children to. FEMA extends WNC hotel stays for disaster victims, more than 500 to receive temporary homes. 2 months after Hurricane Helene washed homes down the rivers of western North Carolina, many in the region are still displaced. In early November, over 4,500 people across the 25 impacted counties were still using the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA announced this week the program is extended through December 12th. So it was only originally slated for 60 days, which you would think would be enough. You would think that'd be enough to get things back on their feet, get everybody back on their feet. The program pays for families and individuals to stay in hotels across western North Carolina. It's not the first time disaster victims in western North Carolina have made the local hotels their temporary home. But yeah, 4,500 people still without homes in America. I don't think Joe Biden's even visited at all. Certainly there's no aid for it. There's lots of ways we can sort of go from this, because sort of ties in a lot of stuff. Just the short end of the stick that American citizens constantly seem to get, constantly having our money taken, sent overseas for some geopolitical project that doesn't even remotely benefit us, while our people struggle to just keep a roof over their heads. And that, of course, ties into the immigration topic. $151 billion spent in a single year just on immigration alone. Mayor Eric Adams is apparently standing up against this, which is pretty interesting. We can also just talk about how this aid works overall. Mike Benz went on Joe Rogan and broke that down. So I got a couple videos that can be related to all of this. And so we'll go to some of those now. Let's go to clip number 10 here. This is New York City Mayor Eric Adams saying he will, in fact, work with the incoming president, Donald Trump, and his border czar, Tom Homan, regarding deportations. This apparently a very contentious and controversial stance to take in this mad world, clown country we call America. Let's go to clip number 10 now.
Those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people, have been a harm to our country. I want to sit down and hear the plan on how we're going to address them. Those are the people I am talking about, and I would love to sit down with the border czar and hear his thoughts on how we're going to address those who are harming our citizens.
You're open to that?
Open to
hearing what their plan is to deport some of these folks, and you think the city, in some circumstances, should cooperate with ICE.
Let me. You know what's interesting? And I was talking to the team the other day. I want you to all go back and Google Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Google what they said about those who commit crimes in our city and what they said in our country. They said those who commit crimes need to get out right away. That was their position. So this is not a new position, because in the state of in the era of cancel culture, no one is afraid to be honest about the truth. Well, cancel me, because I'm going to protect the people of this city. And if you come into this country, in this city, and think you're going to harm innocent New Yorkers and innocent migrants and asylum seekers, this is not the mayor you want to be in the city under.
It's got my vote. I mean, it's crazy how like impressive, simple logic, simple stances are. Cancel me, I don't care. He's exactly right. It's really not complicated. It really goes to show how insane the Democrats have gotten. Because what he said there about Google Barack Obama, Google Hillary Clinton, what did they say about it? That's true for abortion. That's true for gay marriage. That's true for immigration, obviously. That's true for like everything. Since Donald Trump appeared on the scene, the Democrats have completely abandoned any semblance of reasonable policy. And at this point, even counter-signaling that or trying to moderate that is seen as a cancelable offense. This is due to a deliberate and concerted media campaign that's gone on for years to convince people that the most extreme side of the left is really the middle. And if you're against that, you're a right-wing Nazi. Yeah, criminals who come across our country, foreigners from foreign states who enter our country and commit crimes have to be kicked out. The idea that is objectionable at all or unreasonable at all, it doesn't reflect on that position. It reflects on the insanity of the Democratic Party as a whole, of the leftist regime as a whole, of the media as a whole, of these people who are very, very obviously obsessed with just destroying America piecemeal, death by 1,000 cuts. Everything, like most of the stuff that Trump believes, totally normal, like Democratic positions from back in the day, because they weren't all that extreme. Abortion would be another one, right? Rare, safe, and effective, or whatever they used to say. You know, they used to actually recognize, like, yeah, it's not a good thing, but it's a necessary thing, so we better be able to do it safely. I don't agree with that anyway, because it's not necessary, because you don't need to get pregnant. So there's that. You can make exceptions for rape and incest, but outside of that, no, it's not really necessary at the end of the day. But I can at least understand that position. We could at least find some middle ground there. But now it's let me kill my baby at 9 months or you hate women. And now we're just loggerheads. Now we're just enemies with each other. So what we just saw from Mayor Eric Adams, it's like sad that I'm sitting here watching it going, yeah, hell yeah, yeah, Eric Adams, Democratic mayor of New York City, Eric Adams wants to actually protect the people of his city. What a shocking revelation. What an unexpected development. Just crazy. And, you know, I don't know what Trump's administration is going to be like. I'm very excited to find out. I'm especially excited to get rid of the hangers-on, the remnants, the GOP corpses that we're dragging along with us. Owen Schroyer asked on X yesterday, like, we need a name for these people. Susan Collins, Murkowski, McConnell, Thune, John Cornyn, who I'm going to primary, by the way, who I'm seriously thinking about running against. He's like maybe the anti-Liberty caucus as opposed to the Liberty caucus. My suggestion was just the remnants, right? We just refer to them as the remnants. They are the last vestiges of cockroaches just clinging on to the GOP as it is swept to a new and brighter age. These are the hangers-on, the remnants of the old uniparty, rhino, fake Republicans. But I think Fleccas from Fleccas Talks had the best suggestion. Simply Republicans against Trump, the rats. They are the rats. And we really have to... I really don't even want to wait to primary them. I don't want to wait to have to run against them, these people are just not Republicans. It's pretty clear. Like, politics is just war in a different form, right? America never lost a war, but we've been invaded. How'd that happen? Well, it happened through politics. It's a different method of warfare, but the effects are the same. And in war, there's only two distinctions. There's friend and enemy. And the enemy on the other side of the battlefield is less of a danger and less of a threat than the traitor in your own midst. And that's who we're dealing with Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, John Thune, John Cornyn. These people are worse than enemies. They're traitors. They're infiltrators. They do nothing but work to eradicate the gains that we have so strenuously made. And it's almost like they're doing it for no other reason than ego. Like, I can't figure out what else it is. It's like they have institutional power. They see that going away because the American people have moved on. We're sick of the way it's been. We're sick of just decade after decade of the left dominating, the Democrats doing whatever the hell they want, weaponizing the DOJ, weaponizing Congress, talking about packing the Supreme Court. Like, they just are constantly just on full-on attack mode. And the Republicans absolutely refuse to meet them with equal and opposite force and hardly even put up a resistance. And yet these people see that the American people are restless. We want somebody to actually go in and make change. And it's like they're personally insulted by that. And just to prove that they still have the institutional power, they're just putting up roadblocks and causing trouble and preventing Trump's appointees from getting in place. They just want to feel important, is really how it seems. Plus, they all just have these faces. You ever look at their faces? Now, this isn't some high intellectual political interpretation. I just want you to look at their faces. Crew, can we bring up a picture of Susan Collins? Can we bring up a picture of Lisa Murkowski? How these people have remained in power for so long. How these people still have the standing to be obstacles to the MAGA agenda after a sweeping election victory. All three branches of government are ours. Every single county in the United States shifted to the right as Trump shifted to the right. I mean, look at these ghouls. Look at these hags. Who are these people? I said today on Twitter, I'm not going to hate. But boy, do these people make it hard. They really, really make it hard. I don't hate them. I just want them to go away forever. I don't hate them. I just never want to see their face ever again, unless it's like behind bars. And the real issue is, like I said, this is war. We're trying to actually save the country. Humanity's on the brink. We are the last bastion of freedom in the world. We are the only country with the First Amendment. Europe is like all but lost and desperately needs America's help to regain some order from the chaos. And if we go down, like, that's it for 2,000 years of human development. That's it for civilization as we know it in any real, meaningful, positive sense. You'll still have very complicated systems of very ruthless power structures. But the entire concept of human rights and liberty and self-sufficiency, the world order that humanity had to strive and fight and pull ourselves up out of the mud to build, is all going away, and these people are sitting there as obstacles to that. And they're supposedly on our side. So I don't know how we recall them. I don't know what else needs to happen. If anybody knows anyone in Mossad, I'd love some blackmail on them right now. That could be convenient. The Lindsey Grahams, the Mitch McConnells, it really is infuriating. It really is infuriating. Here we are on this starship ready to launch. The countdown has commenced. Engines are firing. We're about to take off into the stratosphere and achieve victory, the likes of which they could only dream of. And they're just there on the launch pad, tying weights to the fins and using a big wrench to try to break us apart right before we take off. It's just like, just get the hell out of the way. My God. But of course, what they're doing is just completely contributing 100% to the Democrats, who are likewise doing everything they can to attempt to stop the flight from taking off. Biden administration locks in WFH policies for some federal staff ahead of Trump. Thousands of federal employees land work from home deal ahead of Trump administration incoming. A Biden administration appointee has agreed to lock in hybrid work protections for tens of thousands of Social Security staff, part of a slew of organized labor efforts that complicate President-elect Donald Trump's efforts to reshape the federal workforce. The American Federation of Government Employees, a union representing 42,000 Social Security Administration workers, reached an agreement with the agency last week that it will protect telework until 2029 in an updated contract, according to a message to its members viewed by Bloomberg. So just another underhanded attempt to prevent Trump from doing what he was elected to do and fulfilling the mandate that the American people granted to him. Gateway Pundit has the story. Biden's parting gift to bureaucrats. Biden regime grants protections and secures permanent telework for 42,000 Social Security bureaucrats until after President Trump leaves office. And at this point, I mean, just watching this on a day-by-day basis, whether it is the interference and obstruction from the so-called Republican senators, the rats, or it's just the way that these bureaucratic maneuvers are being used to try to stop Trump from doing what he was elected to do. It's hard not to think just wipe the slate clean. Like maybe we do just need to reorganize into an empire. Like maybe that's just what we need to do. Because you read I read a lot of books about like ancient Rome and stuff, and in those cases, and that's what our system was modeled off. Different, a little bit more complicated. But back then, it wasn't quite, the strictures weren't quite in place like they are now. And it was more just like, here are the guys that are in charge. And when an issue comes up, the leaders will make arguments. People that feel strongly about it make arguments. And then we all vote and decide which way it goes. And like, that's just sort of how it worked. Oh, there's an issue. Well, let's talk about it. Here's my argument. Here's your argument. All right, let's all put a vote in. This side wins. That's what we're going to do from now on. Like, it was just simple, just very simple and easy. It's like devolved or evolved into this hyper complicated set of, interlocking rule sets that some guy has an authority. And so it's just, you have people who were elected by some tiny constituency in Montana suddenly being able to stop the president of the United States from doing what he wants. Or you have some federal judge that was appointed 3 days ago after just graduating Marxist indoctrination camp, and they're just able to just completely throw out an entire millennia of common law precedent and just decide on a whim that women are men and men are women. Like, it's just, at a certain point, it's like, it's too complicated. It's too nonsensical. The rules that have just built up layer upon layer upon layer have just left us with this like very bizarre role-playing game rule set that, if you know how to utilize it, can be used to just destroy any attempt to get anything done ever. And whether it's Trump's appointees or just trying to get help to people whose homes have been destroyed by hurricanes in Appalachia, it's these rules, these just restricting rule sets that don't have any valid basis in logic or reality. but are very useful to people that want to eliminate our ability to actually get anything done. So I don't know. I mean, I love the republic. I want us to be a republic, but this is not a republic. It's not what we're operating under now. So it's almost like we're slow in coming to the realization that like the offer is not either be a republic where, you know, there's freedom and liberty, or be an empire where there's no freedom and you can't vote and you don't get to say anything. It's like we already are having our freedoms stripped away piece by piece. The more we go into democracy, it's like what Owen Schroyer said during his debate with Destiny, the difference between democracy and a republic, how a democracy is dangerous because the majority can vote to eliminate the rights of the minority, whereas a republic has built-in safeguards to protect our basic freedoms, no matter how many people want them to go away. So in a lot of ways, in you know, sheer reality, looking at it outside of the labels that are placed on it, we don't really have a republic anymore. So we're being asked to play along with this system that has been deliberately compromised and complicated and infiltrated and twisted and warped, and it's bloated and ineffective, and yet extremely effective at sending billions of dollars overseas. That's the most frustrating part. It's not that we can't just do what needs to be done. We could. It's just the puppeteers behind the scenes, you get to dictate what is and is not possible for us right now. And that's infuriating and needs to end. So if you've got a union with 42,000 federal employees, the Social Security Administration, they're changing laws to having a work from home agreement contract. Like, maybe just fire them all. Maybe just fire every single one of them. It's like, oh, well, that's going to be really bad. It's like, who cares? Who cares? Why are we trying to maintain a broken system? Why are we trying to patch up this utterly collapsed, broken down, non-functional transportation system? Right? We have this, it's like, what is Jason's boat or something? There's some saying where, like, you have a boat, but you are replacing one piece here and one piece there, and by the end, there's not a single original piece left. Is it still the same boat? It's kind of that idea where, like, we had a nice, well-functioning car at one point, but as parts break down and you try to upgrade other parts, we're just driving this monstrosity, this crazy, irrecognizable vehicle that has nothing to do with the car we originally started in. Maybe we just trash it. Maybe we just leave it behind and we just create a new shiny vehicle that can actually get things done and serve the American people and not exclusively serve everybody but the American people, because that's the real issue here. That's what's been brought about by this continual stream of interference and manipulation by, like, policy wonks in Congress using obscure parliamentary rules to stop the will of the people from happening. All I know is we could solve every single problem in this country in about 1 week if these people weren't in charge.
I talk a lot about the great successes InfoWars has had. I don't think anybody can deny it. And it is because of listeners and viewers supporting us. But when we talk about the crew at InfoWars, people behind the scenes, the researchers, the writers, they really have been the MVPs in this fight. And when we look at Harrison Smith and Owen Schroyer and the hard work they engage in every day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, it's really just incredible. So for myself and the whole InfoWars crew, I thank you for your past support. And I want to encourage you now to realize that InfoWars cannot stay on air if you do not support us. I know you spread the word. I know you pray for us, and that's wonderful. Keep doing it. But most viewers and listeners never go to InfoWarsStore.com, and you never buy great products that enrich and empower your life while at the same time keep us on air. I know that less than 1% of our listeners actually go buy products at InfoWarsStore.com. If just 1% more of you took action and went to InfoWarsStore.com, our funding problems will be over. Please take action now.
Welcome back, folks. We got a lot of news to get to, and I've been ranting. I'm gonna double down and get to all these headlines here, but I do want to take a moment in this first 5 minutes of the second hour, do something a little personal, because I imagine there are other people in the same position I was in yesterday, or am in today, or whatever. We have a 2-month-old. She's going in for a 2-month checkup, and we had friends whose kid got RSV. And it was like horrible, like really bad. The kid got really sick, like had to go on an inhaler, and like it wasn't just like a flu thing. It's like for a year they have to sleep with a mask on. It's like, it's not good. And this happened to friends of ours, and so my wife is really worried about RSV, and was like, there's new RSV vaccines. Apparently they're not like old vaccines. Like, do you think it's worth it? Because we've seen how bad RSV can be, and this is always the issue with the vaccines, is the things they want you to vaccinate for are like horrifying. It's like polio, right? And it's like, well, I don't think the vaccine is good, but I don't want my kid to be paralyzed. So, God, this is kind of a tough call to make. And so, of course, I try to Google it, and it's like nothing but big pharma propaganda. And so I go to X and I search it there. And I don't know if the search results are weighted by people I follow, but it was just nothing but horrible things about the RSV vaccine. So I went ahead and found this video from Dr. Peter McCullough about Beyfortus, which is the new monoclonal injection for RSV. Long story short, we're not getting the vaccine. I don't think it's worth it whatsoever. And I imagine there might be other people out there in similar positions to us, knowing how bad RSV can be and how prevalent it is, and are thinking, well, this new vaccine might sound pretty good. And I'm here to say, make your own medical choices. But for me and my kids, we will not be getting any injections anytime soon. Let's go to clip number 4. This is Dr. Peter McCullough.
That's correct. And in October of 2023, a new shot was given on the first day of life for all babies, and that's called Beyfortus. Beyfortus is a monoclonal antibody. It's given half a cc, which is a large volume for a little baby, in all babies, and it's a monoclonal antibody directed against respiratory syncytial virus. This has no safety track record. We've never given a synthetic antibody to a baby ever in the history of medicine, and now it's being given uniformly with no idea of what is going to happen to the baby's immune system over the next several weeks or months.
So is this a new type of vaccine variant like the mRNA that's really not the virus that's either dead or weakened, but it's a synthetic version?
Well, this is actually directly the antibody, so it's different than messenger RNA. And we already, in the clinical trials, there was a split on whether or not this was actually safe to do. And now we have data out of France, 200,000 babies have received this, that there's increased mortality. So what the antibody does is, sadly, it actually causes what's called antibody-dependent enhancement, and it enables the respiratory syncytial virus to cause more damage. Now, at 8 months, the baby's supposed to take a full cc of this. This is an example of the biopharmaceutical industry crossing boundaries here, and parents have no idea what's going on.
I think we need to get back to pre-1986, frankly, and Congress needs to take away that law that gave legal immunity, because this is a gold mine for any pharmaceutical company. They can get lots of federal grants for these vaccines, as we saw with COVID-19. And then when they make these, they can recommend all these different vaccines for children. They can have state laws passed to require certain vaccines, and they have no financial downside to it. It's all a gold mine for them.
Do your research, folks. Should not be used in any infants. Higher death risk in Beyfortus RSV shot clinical trials. That story's at Infowars.com, because the attack is relentless, folks. The diseases, vaccines, just do your own research. Look at people you trust. And Peter McCullough.
You're tuned in to the American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch it live right now at band.video.
Welcome back, folks. We got a lot of domestic politics to talk about. We can try to tear through some of these. The story is that the institution is fighting desperately to remain relevant and to put whatever brakes they can on Trump's agenda. He apparently plans to hit the ground running. And there's a story I just had. I'll find it here somewhere about how he plans to remake America in a single week, which I think is about the right amount of time. From Politico, Trump's plans to remake America in 1 week, transition of power. The president-elect's campaign pledges cover immigration to education to energy. President-elect Donald Trump has pledged action on dozens of policy fronts on day one or week one in the White House as part of an aggressive agenda to reverse immigration flows, juice American energy production, reorient global commerce, and purge his political enemies. Based, and very based. If President-elect Donald Trump lives up to his promises, he's going to have a prolific first week in office come January. Trump has pledged on action on dozens of these policy fronts. And Politico has compiled a list of the biggest promises Trump has made on the campaign trail or since winning the election to provide a snapshot of what his first week in office might look like. He wants to remake education, promising to sign an executive order on day one that would cut federal funding to any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. Now remember, these are things that liberals are against, okay? So just think about that. Everything that we mention here, just imagine opposing these things. Incredible. Energy and climate. Trump has promised in a speech in Michigan to declare a national emergency to allow us to dramatically increase energy production. Adding he will approve new drilling, new pipelines, new refineries, new power plants, new reactors, and will slash the red tape. Oh no, oh dear, doesn't he know about climate change? In a campaign video, Trump promised to terminate these Green New Deal atrocities on his first day in office, referring to the climate law called the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden signed into law in 2022. And these people print this stuff like it isn't completely nonsensical and truly insane. He promised to end Biden's electric vehicle mandate. Biden's EPA implemented limits on climate pollution from passenger cars, pushing for electric vehicles to make up 2/3 of new car sales by 2032. And I don't have to tell you, my InfoWars audience, that this has absolutely nothing to do with saving the earth or limiting emissions. That is the excuse they're using to try to get everybody on electric cars. Not that electric cars actually diminish pollution, considering they're almost all powered by coal at the end of the day. They just plug into the grid, which is coal-powered in the first place. So it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with they don't want you to own cars anymore. That's their stated and announced goal. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Cars are a major part of that, as are homes. And they want you to not be able to drive a car because there's no electricity. Because if every car was electric, the grid could not handle it at all, like even remotely. So that means you won't own a car anymore, and instead you'll just rent cars on a per-ride basis. We've covered that extensively, but again, it's all total nonsense. Trump swore he would end offshore wind projects on day one, saying in a speech they ruin the environment, they kill the birds, they kill the whales. Scientists have not found evidence of offshore wind having this effect. They also haven't studied it, and also there is no other explanation for the fact that we went from like one whale washing up every 20 years to like 15 in a single year, immediately following a massive wind turbine project in the area where the whales live. And just every single thing of this is just like, yeah, Trump is just going to do, and this is the thing, it is going to take about a week because none of these problems are real. You understand, if any issue that we're confronting right now was real and legitimate, it would take more than a week to deal with. You understand what I'm saying? These are choices that we're making, and the choices being made are deliberately designed to bring about the suffering of the American people, the impoverishment of the American people, the inaction of our government. Like, that's what all of these policies are designed to do. You can just make a different decision. So the fact that he'll be able to do all of these things in a week proves that they're all just deliberately being enforced by our government in total odds with the reason that the government exists, which is to benefit the American people. In foreign policy, Trump said he would end the war between Russia and Ukraine in 24 hours during a CNN town hall. I guess they're against that too. In healthcare, Trump promised to revoke Biden's cruel gender-affirming care policies. Biden had signed an executive order calling on the Department of Health and Human Services to increase access to, quote, gender-affirming health care and counter state efforts that would limit treatment of transgender minors. Okay, so he's going to stop the castration and chemical mutilation of children. Good. Trump also said he would sign an executive order instructing every federal agency to cease the promotion of sex or gender transition at any age. Good. Again, like all of these things are just great. I don't know what they're even complaining about. Immigration is the one somewhat complicated thing, but you could still solve about 50% of the problem in a single day by simply giving orders to not open the border. Trump said he plans to sign an executive order on his first day as president to end automatic citizenship of children of undocumented immigrants born in the United States. He's raised the issue often, at least since October 2018. In the same video, Trump promised to sign a separate executive order ending birth tourism, where pregnant women legally travel to the United States solely so they can give birth here and their children can become citizens. I'm sure that's something leftists will tell you doesn't exist and isn't happening, which, first, okay, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't exist, then who cares if it's illegal, right? So shut up. That's not an argument against this order because it is happening and everybody knows it's happening. And there's videos of people admitting it's happening. The one I talk about all the time is the Haitian couple that was living in Colombia for 5 years until the girlfriend got pregnant. And they're on camera going, yeah, she's pregnant now, so we're going to go to the United States and give birth, and then our baby will get citizenship, and then we'll get citizenship, and then we'll live off welfare from the great and generous American people forever. So, yeah, that happens, and it needs to stop. You're not a good person for being taken advantage of. At a campaign rally in Florida, Trump said he planned to restore the Trump travel ban on entry from terror-plagued countries. Good. President Trump promised to implement mass deportations of undocumented immigrants on day one of his second term. And I'll give him till day 7. But if at day 7 he hasn't signed an executive order to begin deportations, we're going to have an issue. As part of his pledge to dismantle the deep state, Trump promised in a campaign video to reissue his 2020 executive order on day 1 that would remove job protections for thousands of federal workers by redesignating their roles from policy positions to a Schedule F category, making them political appointees who could be fired by the president. Good. After all, this is their method, is putting employees in bottleneck positions where they can make choices that contravene and interrupt the agenda of the president. And they're proud of this and brag about it. Trump has promised to pardon some January 6 rioters charged with storming the U.S. Capitol, quote, if they're innocent, and, quote, on the first day if he returns to office. Presidents can pardon anyone convicted of a federal crime. Trump also told conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt in an interview that he would fire special counsel Jack Smith within 2 seconds of taking office. Smith has been overseeing the Justice Department's fraudulent investigations into Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I think not only should he be fired, he should be imprisoned along with Merrick Garland for the fraud of his entire appointment in every case he's brought. And in technology, Trump promised at a campaign rally in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to repeal President Joe Biden's artificial intelligence executive order on day 1, which calls for new checks and risk analysis on the technology while also vetting usefulness of the government, among other directives. And of course, that, like every other thing the Democrats do, is a complete dishonest lie. They're like, we need to make sure that this has checks and balances. What they mean is they want to program it to have their worldview. And so they'll have AI as an unquestionable calculator that just spits out leftist talking points. It's very simple, but bad. I think Trump should do all of that. The only concern I have is that he should be pardoning every single January 6th person, every single one of them, regardless of what they did or didn't do. None of that matters. None of that matters. He's not running for anything. After this, he's got 4 years to just set things right. Every single person entrapped during January 6th was a victim of manipulation by the police. They were attacked first. The protest was entirely peaceful till the police started firing. They started it. They started the violence. And the vast majority of people aren't even accused of violence. But let's not quibble, all right? Let's not quibble. Let's not give these people any credit, okay? Every single one of them needs to be immediately fully pardoned, and I say should get a settlement from the government for the pain and suffering they've been forced to go through, despite everything they did on the day being with the permission of the authorities that day, especially the likes of Jake Chansley, or the likes of Enrique Tarrio or Stuart Rhodes, who were convicted based on the behavior of people they weren't even in communications with, on the unspoken conspiracy charge. Just completely absurd. And these people are spending decades in prison. Every single one of them needs to be pardoned on day one. And there's absolutely no excuse not to. Oh, it's going to make the liberals mad? Like that is the only reason that you wouldn't do this? That's insane. That's completely insane. Not only should every single person from January 6th be pardoned immediately, not only should they get settlements, the entire apparatus that they established, the sedition hunters, these thousands of people that got paid wages to spend all day, every day, combing through January 6th to try to identify some, bricklayer from Kansas that wanted to participate in democracy and actually protest an egregious crime of his government, stealing the 2020 election. All of those people, all of that governmental power, all that entire apparatus needs to be taken, repopulated with patriots, and used to go after every single person that participated in the riots in 2020. Why not? Why not? Every weapon they forged needs to be seized and turned against them. Every single one, without hesitation, without capitulation, without concern for the crying of the traitorous criminals in the mainstream media. Okay? It doesn't matter. They're going to get mad no matter what you do, so just do what's necessary and let them get mad. Insane. Meanwhile, speaking of Trump's cases and Jack Smith and others, Jack Smith, by the way, you don't even need to fire him. He's already resigned, but we shouldn't let him get away with that either. But in other news, Fani Willis, full release of communications with Jack Smith ordered after Fulton DA sat on RICO records. This from Infowars.com. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has been ordered by a local judge to release all communications between her office, Special Counsel Jack Smith's office, and the January 6th committee regarding her RICO case against President Donald Trump and his allies after she was found to have violated federal law by withholding them. Don't you just love reading orders about or reading stories about how Democrats, it's just like after they just break federal law and it's just like nothing happens to them. Okay, if it's been proven she's broken federal law, seize her communications and then arrest her for breaking federal law. Simple, simple, simple. It's all very simple. The FTC commissioner urges investigation into pro-censorship ad cartels for antitrust violations. FTC Commissioner Andrew Ferguson has issued a warning against what he describes as pro-censorship advertising cartels, suggesting they may be in violation of U.S. antitrust laws. In a pointed statement, Ferguson expressed his hope that the Trump-era Federal Communications Commission, FCC, and Federal Trade Commission, FTC, would investigate these cartels for potentially suppressing competition and free speech. Again, not potentially, no investigation needed. They absolutely do. They brag about it. So let's stop them doing that. This story also from Infowars.com. You can read more there. In an interview with Natalie Winters of Bannon's War Room, Ferguson said, so generally, under our antitrust laws, private companies can sort of decide what they'd like to do with their own resources, but one of the most important things the antitrust laws forbid is people getting in a room and agreeing that we're not going to compete. He elaborated that if advertisers are, quote, getting in a room together and saying, hey, let's all not advertise on this platform because we don't like that they have free speech on that platform, then these actions could potentially violate antitrust laws. And what is up with the moderating of the word? Like, is everybody's like scared? It really seems like everybody's just scared of like being sued or being taken out of context. When you're sitting here going, for advertisers to come together and decide as a group that they're going to withhold advertising to try to force a company to impose censorship regulations, that's absolutely what they're doing. There's absolutely no question as to whether or not that's happening. There's no question as to whether or not that's illegal. So why are you saying this might be construed as illegal? It could potentially violate antitrust laws. Let's have some balls, please, for the love of God. They're violating the law. They're violating antitrust statutes. They're breaking the law. They need to be stopped. Not possibly, not maybe. They are. So stop them. My God. It really is just like our side just needs some balls. That's all we really need. And all these problems, it'd all be solved. It'd be really great. It'd be really great to live in a world where all of these invented problems just aren't set on us, aren't imposed upon us. But they are, because people like Merrick Garland is still in charge. AG Merrick Garland is begging deep state lawyers to remain at the DOJ, says department needs their institutional knowledge. This is kind of a funny thing. I don't know if this is going to make sense to anybody, but the Democrats are very they're like the inverse of that King Solomon story, where he's got the two women that both say the baby is theirs, and he's like, I'm going to cut the baby in half. And it's the woman's like, no, don't do it. Just give the baby to her. He's like, well, that's the mother. The mother is the one that cares more about the baby than about, her right or whatever. And it's kind of like that with the Democrats, where it's like, they're like, democracy, it's the most important thing. But if you say, all right, well, we're in charge now, there's like, well, what if I destroy it then? What if I tear it in half so neither one of us can have it? I just keep getting that impression from the Democrats, where like they genuinely would be happy for like the DOJ itself to just like collapse into failure and whatever. And so they can sit there and go, see, you should have let us be tyrants. It's very frustrating. I don't want these people in there, but I also just want people in our institutions who do have institutional knowledge and aren't exclusively concerned with their own power and only willing to use that power if it benefits them. How about you just do your job and fulfill your obligations in the role that you've been placed in? Why not? Why not? According to the Washington Post, Garland is concerned that staffers plan to leave because they do not want to be a part of Donald Trump's DOJ. Oh, good. Get rid of it. I mean, it's so funny. There's like, Donald Trump's going to fire everybody, but also we're all quitting. Well, which is it then? Attorney General Merrick Garland and top justice officials are encouraging career staffers to remain in their jobs for the next administration, stressing that institutional knowledge is important as new leaders take hold, according to people familiar with these conversations. Again, it just gives the lie to the whole, the respect democracy. It's like, well, democracy goes against you, and you're just like, let's burn democracy to the ground now that it's not ours. Impotent children. But really what he's doing, I don't need to tell you. What he's telling these people, what he's signaling to these people is, we're going to lose control if you aren't there to subvert Trump's agenda. He's saying, don't give up. Don't run away. Stay behind so you can work as an enemy within. Okay? That's obviously what he's saying, and I don't think you need me to tell you that. But I even get that feeling with Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd melts down over selfish Biden family following Hunter Biden pardon because it makes Democrats look bad. I love that. I love this headline because that is what it's about, right? They just don't want the Democrats to look bad. They don't actually care, right? They don't actually have sincere beliefs about like whether or not you should pardon your family members. They just are concerned that it makes them look bad, and they want to, have something to hang over Trump's head. They're just mad that now if Trump pardons people, we'll be able to throw Hunter Biden back in their face, and that upsets them. And it's funny because it's kind of cultish, where it's like, okay, you want Hunter Biden to have to go to federal prison. You're happy to sacrifice, supposedly, this guy that you've like gone to bat for, and you've sacrificed your own legitimacy and reputation over by pretending that he's a total sweet angel that's just struggling with addiction. No, he's a rampant criminal and an accessory in his father's treason. So we all know that. But at the end of the day, it speaks to the Democrats' willingness to sacrifice an individual for their eventual benefit. Let's go to clip number 6 here. Chuck Todd. Hunter was, he's got some bad things to say about Hunter now that Hunter's pardon can potentially interfere with their eventual retaking of power. Let's watch.
I followed the Hunter Biden trial very closely. Mm-hmm. I read every transcript, all the testimony, because that's what all that was made public. And there is, you want to read, you want to get angry, just as somebody in just all these mixed emotions. You read the Hallie Biden transcript, and that's Bo's widow.
Yes.
And essentially he turned her into a crack addict. And this was all happening in 2017, 2018. And Joe and Jill Biden were so concerned about their family that they decided to run for president.
Yep.
So when you talk about the word selfish, it's almost like the word doesn't, their decision to run for president put the entire Democratic Party and the United States of America in the position that it's in now.
I just can't imagine just imagine being in a party with people so willing to just flip on a dime and stab you in the back at a moment's notice. It's, I guess we are. We have the Republicans. We have the rats. So I guess we do know what that's like. It's just the people that would endlessly call you, all these terrible things for pointing out that the Hunter Biden laptop it's not about him making his wife a crack addict. That points to his morals and character and like probably how he was raised and therefore what Joe Biden is like behind closed doors. Like, yeah, all of that's valid to talk about. But no, the real issue was the treason that they committed, was the selling out of American influence that they were engaged in to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. They don't care about any of that. It's all about power to them. And the Bidens are now inconvenient for their retaining and regaining of power. So loyalty be damned. It's very funny. In fact, we just have time. Let's go to clip number 7 here. This is DNC official and former Kamala surrogate Lindy Lee talking about the divisions in the Democratic Party. Let's watch.
Do you agree that Obama and Pelosi did not want Harris?
I know they didn't. It's not. I have a lot of friends in Obama world, and actually, I'm friends with Speaker Pelosi, and I spoke with her before I actually went on air to encourage President Biden to step aside. And I touched base with her camp before I did that.
And what did she tell you?
It's not a matter of conjecture for me. I know they didn't.
I appreciate that. What did she tell you at that time?
Well, she said it was fine that I went on air to encourage President Biden to step down. It was July 21st when I went on Fox News Sunday, and I said it was time for him to step down and pass the mantle to the next generation. It was necessary. It became clear that he was no longer able to effectively litigate the case against President Biden, against Trump. So, and Obama and Pelosi were both hoping for a primary instead of a coronation, so to speak.
Who do you think they were hoping for?
I don't think Pelosi was hoping for anyone in particular, or not that I know of. I do know that Obama was carefully vetting Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona. I know there were other names on his list. I'm not saying that Kamala Harris was necessarily at the top of the list, but he was definitely considering
other. All of the chickens are coming home to roost. It's just the relentless lies, the relentless backstabbing and underhanded nature of the Democrats is finally, after decades of, screwing themselves over, it might finally take them down for good. Furious Dem official brands Kamala Harris campaign a $1 billion disaster in foul-mouthed tirade. Yeah, let them tear each other apart.
My fellow patriots, there are a lot of amazing Patriot gear, supplements, you name it, at thealexjonesstore.com. But we've now added a whole bunch of other really cool items. There are a bunch of amazing campaign coins for InfoWars for $17.76. For the Fight for Liberty on the site as low as $9.99. Some of the challenge coins are $14.97. They're great fundraisers for us. They have a lot of weight in them. They look great. They're great conversation starters, great gifts, great keepsakes, mementos, and you know that you've supported the InfoWar. So I want to thank you all for your past support and encourage you now to go to thealexjonesstore.com, our amazing sponsor that will keep us on air one way or the other. If InfoWars gets shut down, that's okay, because they're a great sponsor. They're not owned by me, and the bad guys won't be able to shut down thealexjonesstore.com. So go there for the campaign coins and so much more today, and keep me in the fight. Thank you so much for your support.
Infowars.com is tomorrow's news today.
You're listening to The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch it live right now at band.video.
Back, folks, we got some breaking news here. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson fatally shot outside Hilton Hotel in Midtown in possible targeted attack. New York Post, the CEO of United Health's insurance division was gunned down Wednesday morning outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown in what police say was a targeted attack. Brian Thompson, 50, was at the hotel around 6:46 a.m., arriving early for a conference when a masked man, allegedly waiting for him, fired at him repeatedly and fled eastbound off 6th Avenue. Thompson was hit in the chest. He was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital in critical condition, where he was later pronounced dead. Andrew Whitty, CEO of parent company United Health Group, said the firm had been holding an investor day conference at the hotel on Wednesday, which Thompson was attending. The conference was abruptly called off due to this very serious medical situation with one of its team members. Officials say no arrests have been made yet, and the investigation is still ongoing. The suspect was described as a white male wearing a cream-colored jacket, black face mask, and black and white sneakers. Officials say he was also carrying a gray backpack. The suspect had been spotted near the vicinity of the hotel on 6th Avenue, milling around. Sources say the shooter was not a guest of the hotel, but it's unclear if he had other business there. When the suspect spotted Thompson, he began to fire from a distance, striking him multiple times. The masked man then fled through the Ziegfeld alleyway and hopped on a bike to flee the scene. Sounds like some sort of medical mafia hit, and it appears as though there's some interesting aspects to this guy. I was just looking into it during the break. I haven't had time to actually dig into this, but it appears as though United Healthcare was working with the WHO to do a bunch of new vax safety monitoring databases. Anyway, we'll bring you more updates as we find them, but a very, very interesting event. Not something you see every day. Meanwhile, let me just see if I can't get back through this stack of domestic political news. Most of it's about Donald Trump's picks. Again, I see people that are sort of down on Trump. Like, it's kind of the same thing that happened in his first administration. It's pretty clear to me Donald Trump is not really the issue right here. Like, you have people going, Pam Bondi, she's terrible. And it's like, well, it was Matt Gaetz at first. Trump wanted Matt Gaetz. It's not his fault that the rats in the Republican Party stopped that from happening. And now I've had a couple more picks from Donald Trump are being either forced to the side or putting in their withdrawal. Chad Cronister, Donald Trump's pick to run the DEA, withdraws name from consideration. This is a guy that, real Trump supporters weren't really happy with in the first place. And it seems like the backlash probably led to Donald Trump asking for his withdrawal. Chad Cronister, Donald Trump's pick to run the DEA, said Tuesday he's withdrawing his name from consideration, becoming the second person selected by the president-elect to bow out quickly after being nominated for a position requiring Senate confirmation. In March 2020, Cronister arrested the pastor of a megachurch who held services with hundreds of people and violated a safer-at-home order in place aimed at limiting the spread of the coronavirus, saying, quote, "Shame on this pastor, their legal staff, and the leaders of this staff for forcing us to do our job. That's not what we wanted to do during a declared state of emergency," Cronister said at the time. "We're hopeful this will be a wake-up call." Well, it was. It was a wake-up call to the way that color of law can be used by first enacting the emergency conditions and then declaring them emergency in order to deprive the American people of their basic constitutionally guaranteed rights. Meanwhile, Trump mulls replacing Pete Hegseth with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. President-elect is discussing replacing current Pentagon nominee as the former Fox News host faces mounting scrutiny over allegations about his personal life. Amazing the way that they're able to take what seemed to me totally baseless, just like gossip, and, change the course of our country with this. It's very convenient. These people who no big scandals, no big, problems their whole lives until suddenly they're about to be put in a position of power. And suddenly it's accusations and rumors and gossip and scandal. Totally absurd. I tend to trust people like Brianna Morello, who wrote a letter about this saying, I worked with Pete Hegseth. I was a booker on Fox News forever, and I never heard a single bad thing. Nobody ever said anything about him. Apparently there's accusations that he was drunk, and it's just total baseless accusations. But apparently that's enough. Apparently that's enough to overwhelm the will of the American people as expressed through their vote of Donald Trump. Dan Bongino, Piers Morgan join other current and former Fox colleagues in defending Pete Hegseth from drinking allegations by anonymous Fox News staffers. And that was the other thing that Brianna Morello said, was just These accusations don't stand up to basic journalistic scrutiny. You're using two unnamed sources to spread rumors that everybody who works with him denies. But hey, they're still saying that Donald Trump called soldiers suckers and losers. So, truth has nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter. From Infowars.com, Trump shocks the deep state, sidesteps weaponized White House transition process. Two viral postings on X describe how President-elect Donald Trump is avoiding the treachery of D.C.'s entrenched permanent state that sought to upend his first presidency before it started, beginning with his January 2017 transition to the Oval Office. Quote, having experienced firsthand the malevolence of the so-called permanent government during his initial transition in 2016-2017, Trump is under no illusions about the loyalty or intentions of the Secret Service, particularly the General Services Administration, GSA, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and Department of Justice, DOJ, Amuse, explained on X. The current transition struggle exemplifies the danger of allowing the permanent bureaucratic state to accrue power unchecked. During his first term, Trump's transition team, Trump for America, faced betrayal when the GSA improperly handed over thousands of emails from the transition period to special counsel Robert Mueller without proper authorization, Amuse wrote. An agency ostensibly dedicated to facilitating the transition had instead been co-opted to undermine it. Trump's MAGA administration dropped a nuclear bomb on Washington's corrupt establishment by rejecting taxpayer-funded GSA tools and launching a fully private transition. Trump is cutting the deep state out of the equation. This isn't just a handoff, it's a full-scale revolution, Ann Vandersteel wrote on X and Substack. Another thing that they are doing is having private organizations carry out the background checks prior to nominees being put forward for consideration. Typically, they would use the FBI, which, of course, is just an excuse to give the FBI veto power over what the president wants to do. And that's not acceptable, considering that the FBI, at their leadership at least, is chock full of anti-American treasonous scumbags. And so, of course, you have the likes of Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski saying, I refuse to vote in favor of anybody who hasn't been background checked by the FBI because they're a part of the deep state swamp and have to be removed before we can actually get anything done. Now, I was going to play this video earlier because it has to do with what we were talking about with the billions of dollars being sent to Africa while people in Appalachia are still homeless. It's Mike Benz was on the Joe Rogan podcast, clip number 9. Here he's talking about the specter of aid, of U.S. aid, and how like foreign aid itself is bad, but sometimes it's just used as a cover for significantly worse things. Let's go now to clip number 9. Here's Mike Benz on USAID.
State Department, USAID, and the National Endowment for Democracy. Now USAID is, a very notorious. It's sort of a switch player. There's no aid in USAID, by the way. That's your brain is being tricked when you see the phrase USAID. It's not an aid organization. The aid in USAID stands for U.S. Agency for International Development. It is developing internationally around the world all of the institutions that the State Department needs to use. So when they are capacity building activist groups in a foreign country, that's because the State Department wants those activists there. Now, USAID, for the first time in its history, it was created in the early 1960s by JFK, 1961. It was created because you had all of this intelligence, statecraft, and military support and logistical aid that was tripping over itself, basically. The military would be funding, would be running aid to certain groups in the region. The State Department would be running aid to certain groups in the region. The intelligence community would, and there was no sort of central coordinator of those capacity building operations. So USAID, by the way, is a $50 billion budget. The entirety of the intelligence community is only $72 billion. So it is as more than the CIA and more than the State Department.
Wow.
And aid is basically USAID is effectively a switch player to assist the Pentagon with on the national security front, to assist the State Department on the national interest front, or to assist the intelligence community on a sort of clandestine operations front.
So the National Endowment for Democracy, USAID, these are the regime change preliminary actors, right? They go in and they foster the environment in which the CIA can come in and oust a leader and replace them with somebody that they control. Same thing they did in Ukraine. They're now doing it in Georgia. Georgia is still being roiled by protest as a consequence of this. We go to clip number 13. This is just what's happening in the country of Georgia, as it appears as though exactly what happened in Ukraine is happening there, where the government made a choice to align themselves closer to Russia than with the EU. And all of a sudden, you have massive protest breaking out in an attempt to overthrow that government and put a U.S. puppet in place to probably start a terror campaign against their own people and open another front in the proxy war against Russia. Georgia and the government there seems to have recognized this and is taking major steps to prevent it. And I frankly don't blame them. I don't. Now I want to talk about Daniel Penny. Today, or I guess yesterday, the jurors started to deliberate in the case of Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny's lawyers say he acted out of fear to protect fellow New Yorkers. A jury of 12 New Yorkers ended their first day deliberating the legal fate of Daniel Penny, a former U.S. Marine accused of putting a homeless man in a fatal chokehold without a verdict. Penny, 26, has faced a month-long trial in a Manhattan courtroom after pleading not guilty to charges of second-degree manslaughter and negligent homicide. Prosecutors have cast him as reckless when he restrained 30-year-old Jordan Neely on a subway train, while Mr. Penny's attorneys say he stepped in to protect anxious riders of the subway. Now, there are a few concerning developments in this. Let me just tell you how rigged this thing is, okay? First of all, it wasn't just Daniel Penny holding the guy down. As you see there were other people assisting because Daniel Penny didn't just get off work, was headed home. I think he was at school or maybe he was headed back from the gym or something. Right? To act like he just was sitting on subway and just decided out of nowhere to put a guy in a headlock. No, multiple people are holding this guy down because everybody on the train recognized that he was a threat because he was making threats and being insane. Now, the black guy holding his hands there, he was totally dismissed. His charges were totally dropped, and he was actually given a plea deal in the hopes he would testify against Daniel Penny. Then he said he was afraid to testify because he would have testified in favor of Daniel Penny, and he felt like he would have been targeted by his community for doing that because, Daniel Penny is white, which means he's evil, and Jordan Neely is black, which means he's good, and that's as far as their moral delineation goes. They basically said as much with Mayor Eric Adams. As much as I like what he says about immigration, he still has that tendency of the left to just be despicable racists. And is sitting there talking about how Jordan Neely is one of us. He looks like me, us black people that are all the same and work as a group apparently against the white man who was trying to protect the women and children on the train. Another interesting aspect of this, Jordan Neely actually had an active warrant out for his arrest because of a previous time that he had attacked a woman on a subway train. That came out recently. So it's not like this was even speculative, like Jordan Neely seemed crazy, but maybe he was harmless. No, he was actually already in trouble for hurting somebody on a subway train. Daniel Penny, of course, wasn't there in that case, so he got to victimize an innocent person. Jordan Neely. Some other aspects to this, the medical examiner who looked and did the autopsy of Jordan Neely originally said the results of her autopsy were inconclusive. She could not say what the cause of death was. Then she saw the video and felt emotionally impacted by it. And after that, decided actually he died from being choked out. And it was Daniel Penny's fault. Literally, she admitted that on the stand as a witness. That's not how autopsies are supposed to go. And she made that determination prior to any toxicology report coming in. So it was inconclusive. She was waiting for a toxicology report. Then she saw the video of Daniel Penny choking him and said, actually, now I think he was choked to death and I don't need the toxicology report, despite the toxicology report coming back showing that there were multiple synthetic drugs in his system at the time. Also worth noting is that on the body cam footage that was released during the trial, you can hear the police say the man still has a pulse and was alive when Daniel Penny let go of him, handed him off to the cops, and ended his participation in the entire event. Then they bring Daniel Penny in for a statement under totally false pretenses, which I get. They're supposed to try to, there are tricks they can use. It's an interrogation. They read him his Miranda rights. he maybe should have been more careful, but it was a trick. It was a trick, and it was a fraudulent confession that they were able to get because, one, he didn't know Neely had died because he didn't kill Neely. Neely died later in the custody of the police. So he didn't realize, like, oh, this guy died. I better be careful with what I say. In his interpretation, there was a crazy guy on the subway train. He and some other riders subdued him until they handed him off to the cops, still alive. Okay? But they interrogate him under the pretense that he is just a witness to the crime of Jordan Neely, threatening people. He thinks he's a witness. He thinks he's a hero because that's what he was. He stopped a crazy criminal from attacking people again on the subway. And he gives a statement, and then they use that statement to try to convict him for manslaughter. Totally brutal and horrific the way they're treating this guy. There's so much other stuff into this. I mean, this is just off the top of my head. It's just like, you can research everything I'm saying. All of this is absolutely true. Jordan Williams was the other guy that was holding Jordan, or whatever his name was, Neely down. Jordan Williams has charges dropped from NBC New York. The Queens man who argued, I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. That guy did get his charges dropped. The other guy that was holding him down with Daniel Penny did get his charges dropped. We've covered that before, and we've shown his statements on the show. This is a different guy. This is just a little bit of a compare and contrast. Daniel Penny, on his way home from work, crazy guy who has attacked people in the subway before, is threatening women and children. Daniel Penny gets up, puts him in a headlock, hands him off to police. Now he's charged with manslaughter. Meanwhile, Jordan Williams is this other guy in a totally separate case in New York City, a Queens man who argued he stabbed a subway rider to death in self-defense and is totally avoiding prosecution. A grand jury declined to indict Jordan Williams on manslaughter and weapons charges stemming from a June 13th killing on a Brooklyn J train. The 20-year-old has been arrested for the stabbing death of 36-year-old DeVictor Cuadrago. Our office conducted an impartial and thorough investigation into the tragic case, which included review of multiple videos and interviews with all available witnesses, and the evidence was fairly presented to a grand jury. Today, the charges against Jordan Williams have been dismissed. The violent incident broke out after 8 p.m., and police responded to a 911 call of a man stabbed while aboard the train. When officers got to the train station, they found a 36-year-old man who'd been stabbed in the chest. He was raced to the hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. Apparently, this guy had been harassing multiple passengers while acting belligerently and erratic towards others on board, exactly the same as Jordan Neely. He may have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol, just like Jordan Neely, but a toxicology report will determine if that was the case. Well, with Neely, it determined it was, in fact, the case. Williams' girlfriend was one of the people who Cuadrago had been harassing, with an assistant district attorney revealing in court that Williams told Cuadrago to stop harassing his girlfriend and pushed him away. Then he stabbed him in the chest with a knife, and that apparently is not manslaughter, but putting a person in a headlock to subdue them is, even if they die later in police custody. It's because he's white. It's because this is a lynching. This is a literal racial lynching. It's just being done with all the form and appearance of a legitimate legal proceeding. Greg Price says this: you can't make this up. Daphna Yoron is the Manhattan prosecutor currently throwing the book at Daniel Penny. But in 2019, she gave a reduced sentence to a black man who murdered an Asian college professor as he was withdrawing cash from an ATM. She said it was under the guise of restorative justice and ended up giving him 10 years for manslaughter when he was originally charged with murder. She's now attempting to imprison an innocent man who protected a group of people on the subway. So, I mean, again, this is not just an indictment of, like, this whole court system. It's an indictment of, like, us as the American people. Like, the fact that we allow people like this any semblance of power is absurd. They're very open about the fact that they change what they do based on their perceived, interpretation of the racial reality in America. If you're a black guy that stabs an Asian dude at an ATM just because you want his money, well, now it's time for restorative justice, and we have to take in the account of slavery from 200 years ago. So we'll give you a little slap on the wrist, 10 years, you'll be out in 5. Don't worry about it. All you did was slaughter a man for cash. Meanwhile, Daniel Penny doesn't kill a guy and is facing manslaughter charges and probably a much greater sentence at the end of the day. And again, they're not shy about this. They tell you this is the case. It's like that judge we showed a couple weeks ago where this black guy is arrested for having drugs on him, and the judge just decides it's because he was black. He's just like, you were arrested for walking while black. How despicable. You're free to go. And it's like, okay, he wasn't arrested because he was black. He was arrested because he committed a crime. but he has been released because he's black in this weird inversion of anti-racism where you just let black people go because they're black. It's illegal, actually. Let's go to clip number 11. Here is that NYC prosecutor, this just utterly repulsive gremlin, describing how she let a black murderer get away with murder because he was black, and that means he can't commit crimes. Let's watch.
So I'm going to give you an example of something that I did with a recent case of mine, and this has never been done in my office. I had a murder case where the defendant did not intentionally kill the victim. He went into an ATM on the Upper West Side and tried to rob an individual. Unfortunately, it was an older individual. He was 86. And
it's his fault for being old.
In the course of the robbery, he fell to the ground, and as a result, he died.
Can we just pause it? This person needs to be in jail. I can't believe what I just heard. Let me tell you what actually happened. An 86-year-old college professor withdrew money from an ATM. A black guy went up and killed him. That's what happened. The way she describes that is as if it's this guy's age that's at fault. I mean, all he was doing was trying to rob the guy. I mean, you can't blame him. He wanted money. He goes up and just innocently tries to rob him. The man falls somehow. Probably his fault. Old man. He shouldn't even be walking around, probably. It's his fault for falling down and dying all of a sudden through no fault of the robber robbing him. This is legit insane. Let's go back to the psychopath now presenting herself as a prosecutor in New York City.
A felony murder, which is akin to intentional murder. However, when I first got the case, I learned, I took the time to learn about the defendant. And it was a strong case, so it wasn't about a whodunit. I knew immediately who did it. I could prove it. I could take it to trial that day and win it. But it wasn't about that. It wasn't about that. The more I learned about the defendant and his life and the circumstances, the kinds of things that Jarrell was talking about, that one should take into account the trauma of that individual.
Take into account the trauma of that individual.
I'm sorry for him that he had gotten to that point in his life where he felt like there was no other choice but to commit this robbery.
I felt sorry for him that he'd gotten to a point in his life that he felt he had no other choice but to kill an old man. Holy crap. I mean, can you imagine being the family of the murdered guy and hearing that the person who is charged with and given, prosecutor in New York City, and they're sitting there talking about how their number one concern was empathizing with the murderer of your family member? We got two options. We can either get rid of people like that now, like immediately, or there's just going to be vigilante justice. Like these are our only options. All I'm saying is if some black mugger killed my family member and this lady is on TV going, but he was traumatized from slavery, so we can't blame him. I can't tell you what I'd do.
All right, folks, Nitric Boost is back in stock at InfoWarsStore.com. Now, this supplement is amazing for several reasons. First of all, vitality enhancement. It's a great supplement to add to your routine if you do things like work out, or if you're an athlete, or if you simply want increased vitality throughout the day. The other reason this product is absolutely amazing is because Nitric Boost can help with muscle recovery. Now, we know that muscle recovery is an imperative part of muscle growth, and that this supplement being added to your routine can help you reach your goals in the gym with that recovery. Finally, cardiovascular health is a major factor when it comes to Nitric Boost. We know that heart disease is a major cause of death in the United States of America. Obviously, we've heard tons of reports over the last several years, especially of heart problems, myocarditis, and things like that. We know that Nitric Boost is a way to support your heart health. Check out InfoWarsStore.com today and get your bottle of Nitric Boost now.